Hello everybody, welcome back to All the Mods 8. In between episodes, I did a little bit of cleaning up here. As you can see, this is the design that I settled on for the kind of main area down here in the base. As you can see, this is what I've been kind of doing in between episodes. I decided on this kind of aesthetic for the base right now. I think it's kind of clean. I was trying to decide whether I wanted to texture the walls or not, but it ended up looking a little too busy for my liking. So anyway, this is what I've come up with. It's pretty clean looking, and all of these are basically just variations of white concrete. This is cyan terracotta though. That's the only difference, and then also the normal white light from the Simply Lights mod. And I thought this design up here was kind of cool. It's kind of like looks kind of like a vent or something, so it kind of looks like the whole area is a vented lab underground, so I think it turned out pretty cool. And I did decide to up the ceiling height. Like before, it was only up to about this block here, the ceiling height, but I thought that this would make it feel a little less claustrophobic while we're working down here, and we could even add a little bit of greenery around, just to kind of spruce it up a little bit. That way we can kind of make this area look a little bit more homey, but still keep the lab aesthetic that we're going for down here. I've been making a bunch of concrete using the fluid encapsulator. This is from the thermal mod, and it essentially just lets you convert concrete powder into normal concrete, just kind of automatically. In the background you can dump it in. I have it dumping into a chest, so I put the concrete powder up here, and it will auto grab it and turn it into the hardened concrete, which is nice. Now, the original aesthetic I was going for down here was the concrete floor like this, and I was going for kind of a lighter tone. Unfortunately, this concrete is really annoying to make because the only way you can make it in bulk amounts is either you have to set up a create auto crafting setup, but also you have to fill a bucket manually every single time you want to create concrete. And getting auto water buckets is kind of annoying, and that could be done via auto crafting. You can auto craft buckets of water. I think you can do that using just water essence. Yeah, so if we have water essence here, we can craft ourselves a bucket of water pretty easy. But I just think it's a little annoying for just an aesthetic choice. So I was looking at maybe potentially using some of this gray concrete. Now, I could also go with the light gray concrete if this ends up being too dark in here. But I actually thought that maybe a darker floor could look nice, just because everything else is pretty bright and white. Okay, there we go. The floor has been completely switched over, and I think I do like this a little better. How I have this set up here, I think what my plan is this is going to be in this wing here, where I have already have the refined storage auto crafting's little setup here. I think this is going to be dedicated to more of that same auto crafting stuff, and also some basic processes that we're going to be using a lot, like auto crafting with smelting, crushing, or anything like that. That's not going to be mod specific. That's going to go down in here, and maybe it's going to go into the walls, or maybe we'll have a little small room that we create over there for that kind of stuff, and I think that's going to be the plan. Then I want this wing probably to be dedicated to strictly mechanism. We need quite a bit of mechanism to get into some of the late game quests and such, so we are going to have mechanism at some point, and I think I'm going to do most of that down that way. And then on the other side, I think is getting a start into industrial foregoing, the mod. And that is because industrial foregoing has one of the best ways to generate all the modium ore in the pack. If we click on the raw all-the-modium ore, the only way we can actually get this stuff is if we mine it for one, or if we use what's called the laser drill. Now, the laser drill, this can't actually be set up in this area because what we have to do, and I'll get into that a little bit later, is we have to set this thing up in the biome that is required to mine this stuff. So, for example, to get the all-the-modium ore, we need to set this up in a deep dark biome. Now, we have found some deep dark biomes, so that shouldn't be too hard to do, but we just have to keep that in mind that we're going to have to set these up all over the world, because the next one, the vibranium, we type in vibranium ore. This is, see, this stuff can only be found in the warped and crimson forests between these Y levels. So we're going to have to do a little bit of running around and setting a couple of these systems up all over the place, which means we're going to have to make sure that we're chunk loading those areas if we want to keep processing those ores, even when we're not in that area. But we are going to need to do some other stuff to get into Industrial 4 going as well, and we're also going to need it to farm something called the piglet hearts, I believe. Now, these are a recipe that we need to make the aluminium unobtainium alloy, which is what we need to get the Allamod star. The piglet hearts are dropped from the piglet mob, which are found in the other, I believe, and they drop between 0 and 1 piglet hearts on death. So I'm not exactly sure if we can use the swab and get a spawn egg for them, and if we can, then see, it doesn't look like they have a spawn egg attached to their entity, so I'm not exactly sure if we can do that farming the same way. If not, what we should be able to do is, through Industrial Foregoing, there is what's called the mob imprisonment tool, where if you can basically grab any mob you want inside of this tool, and we can actually use the mob duplicator to duplicate whatever is in this tool. So hopefully then we can use the mob duplicator to duplicate these guys and get a whole bunch of them. But what's also noticeable about this is to get one of these, and we need 9 of these per block, and we need, a substantial amount of blocks. Just to get one of these requires 1 billion FE. So we are going to need some serious power infrastructure before we start even considering doing this. And this is done through the Powah mod using the Energizing Orb. So we're going to have to figure out a better way to get some power. And I'm thinking the best way to do that is probably to get into the Powah mod. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to have 2 goals. We're going to get started in some basic power generation, and we're going to get ourselves hopefully up to a reactor. The Powah reactors are actually quite easy to maintain. If you've played with other mods that have like reactors for power, they can sometimes be a little dangerous, but the Powah reactors are actually very, very simple, and they're basically completely safe. There's no way you can blow these up. They're very safe, and they have a very decent, as you can see there, generation factor of 250,000 FE per tick. Now that is not exactly what we're going to want for the end game, because we're going to need some potentially higher, even higher than that. But this is probably going to carry us through to, I would say, most of the way through the pack, to the point where we're going to need to get maybe into some mechanism power. But this is going to do probably just fine for now. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to set up a reactor in a little room back here where we're going to have Powah and all sorts of power generation stuff going on. So now that I think about it, we're actually probably going to hold off on Industrial Foregoing till probably next episode. And this episode we're going to dedicate solely to getting some better power generation set up, and then maybe even cleaning up our system over by the mob farms there, where we have all the the seeds are being processed. I'm thinking I want to clean up that entire area, because right now it's a bit of a mess. So getting started with Powah, if you want to, they actually do have a manual in Powah that can let you kind of go through some of the basics of Powah and what you need to get started. I've played with this mod quite a bit, so I'm fairly familiar with this, so I'm not going to bother going into this right now, but there should also be, I'm not sure if there's a quest line for Powah. It doesn't look like it. There's a little bit of Powah stuff right here for the mid-game power options. I'm not sure if this is an actual quest line. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's an actual quest line, but what we're going to do is we're going to get started. Because we already have a little bit of power set up over there, we're actually not going to bother going into the starting Powah options. We're going to try and get ourselves all the way to this tier here. Now, in order to get the highest tier of reactor, so we're going to need to get the previous tiers all the way back down, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 total tiers of reactors we got to go through to get started. Now, these reactors are actually a multi-block. So because this recipe here uses 4, or it creates 4, we actually need to get 36 of these, because it's basically a 9-block base, a 3x3, and then 4 blocks tall. So in order to get this, we have to go all the way back down to the basic tier. and then the starter tier here. So in order to get this stuff, we need uraninite. We don't really have a renewable source of uraninite right now, so we might actually be best setting up some seeds for this. We are slowly running out of space in these compact machines. I'm gonna have to probably set up another one at some point. I think for now we have enough dragon seed or dragon egg seeds, so I'm actually gonna take this one off, just to kind of make a little bit of extra room. So I was about to go ahead and make some of this the uraninite seed, but I figure it's probably better to set up and organize some of our seed processing before we start adding more and more seeds in. So I'm actually think I'm gonna go, and what I want to do is set up all of our seed processing in its own compact machine. And how we're gonna do that is we're gonna just get rid of that barrel. We're gonna put a compact machine. We want to put the largest size compact machine, which is a block of netherite, and then some of the walls, which we're fine with here. But if we go here, we slap that down. This is the largest size compact machine. Now it's pretty big, probably more than what we'd need for this process, but I think this is going to make this much easier in the long run. It is force loaded, so there we go. Anyway, what I'm going to do now that we have this thing set up is I want to take all of the processes from underground that we have back here. We're going to have to probably turn off the harvesting pylons because I don't really want to overwhelm the system. So I think what we're just going to do is switch all these off for now. Okay, everything is turned off now, so we should have no problem coming in here and starting to take a lot of this stuff out. As long as we keep this emerald chest here for now, we should have no problems coming in here and grabbing out all of this stuff. So I've moved all of this stuff into the compact machine, and I have our 2 inputs. Okay, so this setup is basically done. I have everything set up and filtered properly, so all we have to do is kind of go in, throw the switch, and see if this thing is working. And by throw the switch, I mean turn back all of these to on, just like that. Looks like there are some seeds in here that are stuck. So I'm gonna have to go double check that. Those should all be going out the side. Maybe it has to come in the top? Aha, that is the problem. Okay, so good to know. That's something I didn't actually know, is that that has to come in the top. It can be extracted from the side, it looks like, but it looks like all the seeds have to come into the top. So that means that this is also probably backing up. Yep, that's backing up too. And there we go. That's set, and we are all set and ready to go. Still maybe a little bit of a mess. Okay, so it is coming in. It's coming in very slowly though, so we're gonna have to monitor that once we have the reactor set up and see if it's keeping up. But if not, there's always something we can do. We can always add some more seeds. No problem. Now we're gonna move this emerald furnace over here. We're actually gonna probably upgrade this too, but we're gonna move it and give it some power somewhere else, just so we can keep it a little bit more out of the way, and somewhere maybe where we're working with auto crafting already. So in order to get the reactor, let me just pin this really quick. The nitro, we're just gonna pin all the way down to the starter. Starter here requires some basic stuff like this dielectric paste. This is something that we're going to definitely want on AutoCraft for sure, because this is something we're going to need quite a bit of. And we're going to need to make sure that we have that in good supply. So if we come into our pattern grid, we can come in here and go to the basic stuff. And this requires some uraninite, which we have coming in. The basic capacitors, which are just a AutoCraft of this one. But to start off, we want this. Now, there are 2 different recipes for this. We can get 24 out of this if we use a lava bucket. But I think this is actually better value because it only requires 1 clay, a little more coal, but we have coal coming in fairly easily. So I think because we have the blaze powder, and this is going to be a little harder to get, we're going to do this recipe here. And this looks fine to put on an exact. We want coal, blaze powder, and clay balls. Now we can put that into our auto crafting, just like so. And now we can auto craft the dielectric paste. If we come into our crafting grid, dielectric, say we want 256. Oh, we are out of clay. So again, that's something that now that we want to auto craft is clay. So let's see, to craft clay, what are the ways we can do it? Well, we might as well use mystical agriculture because we have it like this already. So 2 dirt essence and 2 water essence make 24 clay. Sounds good to me. We'll put that into our crafter as well. And now if we come back to the dielectric paste, we'll see that we can actually make it because it's going to craft up the clay that we need as well. So we'll go ahead and do that. And there we go. So if we come to this part, we can come back here and we can start going through all of this auto crafting in the pattern grid. So if I come to the reactor, we can come here. Now we have this auto crafted, so that's not a problem. We can have that auto crafted. This is pretty easy to auto craft as well. We're going to need to make sure we know how to make iron bars. So that's going to be something there. As you can see, it's just a lot of like going back and forth, seeing what we need from the autocraft to make this thing work. And we need this version of it as well. So now we should have everything we need to craft this piece here. And now we have all of this. So now we can autocraft the starter reactor pieces. So if we type in here reactor, we're going to need 36 of these. If I come in here, do we have everything we need? Yes, we do. Go ahead and start it. And there we go. It's just that simple. So now we have that one done. We can check it off the list and we want to go to the basic. I'm going to go and basically go until we have to set up the energizing system. And then we're going to set that energizing system up as part of today's episode as well. I'm not exactly sure how much this is generating. The generation factor, I think, is a little different than the total generation. But this is going to be a substantial amount already. And the problem is here, now that we're at this point, we need to start getting into the energizing feature of this mod. And basically what you need to get into the energizing feature is the Energizing Orb and the Energizing Rods, which actually zap the stuff on here with energy. So you basically give these rods energy, and if they're nearby to this, it'll zap the stuff on top of this and create new materials. If that'll be done, there we go. So we have the Energizing Orb, and it kind of looks something like this. So basically we can take an item and put it on top, and if there's a recipe for it where it can be energized, then any nearby energizing rods will start zapping this item. But we're going to move this somewhere a little nicer. We're going to actually create a room back here for Powah itself. So we want to be able to put the reactor back here. We want to put the energizing setup back here. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to come out maybe one more block here. Make it a nice five gap. And then we'll start making our room. So let's do something like that. There we go. So now we know where our room's going to be. I'll go ahead and do a little bit more digging here. Maybe throw in a little design with the current design that we have going on in here. I'll do the exact same type thing in this room, and I'll bring you guys back. I'm sick and tired of this boon of the earth. I need to get rid of that at some point, but yeah, so I think this room itself, that might be a big enough space. I know that the actual reactor itself is only a 3x3x4, so it's pretty small. I might situate that at the very back of this room. And then I was thinking about setting up this energizing system in the floor and having like kind of a glass floor to look down at it as it's working, which would, I think, look really, really cool. And the grand reveal, ta-da! But yeah, anyway, this is where the reactor is going to sit. And it's going to take up the space, this 3x3 here, and I'm going to have it indented into the wall a little bit. And we're going to have to make sure we have cabling running underground for this thing. We do have to run an export cable to the reactor because we need to be able to feed it the uraninite as fuel. So here we go. We just need to grab ourselves a white or a cable. I'm just going to preemptively run this thing over here. I'm not going to hook it up, obviously, until I've made the reactor, but it'll end up sitting somewhere like that. But yeah, I think it looks pretty good. One thing we do have to set up right now, though, is the Energizing Orb area. And that, I think, is going to go right in the middle here. So if we dug down, we might actually have to reroute this cable a little because we're going to have this Energizing Orb be underground. Probably this much space will probably be enough. Then we're going to have to then reroute the cable from here just down to here. Oh, and there is a massive cave right below. That's fine though, because we can then we can bring it all the way across to here, And that way we can just then have a nice clean cable setup. And it'll still be hooked up, so that's good. Yeah, so it doesn't take up a lot of space, I don't think. And you'll see that once we get this thing started. I'm just going to make it uniform. So yeah, that's where we're going to be putting our energizing orb, right there. Okay, so I finished the little area where we're going to be doing a lot of our energizing, and I'm going to just do a quick demonstration of how this actually works. So to do this, we're going to grab ourselves a couple of energy cables from the Powah mod. I believe the mechanism cables also work for this as well, if you wanted to use a different set of them, but I am just going to grab a few basic cables here, just like that. And we can put them in auto crafting soon too, if we want to as well. But I'm just doing this as demonstration purpose. And we also need to get started one energizing rod. So I'm thinking we can just do this, auto craft everything. If things are hovered blue like this, and you have the blue here and you want to craft something, it normally will just bring you to the crafting grid and it'll be like, oh, you don't have these things. It won't automatically craft them for you. But if you come back here and you hold the control button and left click with control, it will then decide, oh, you want to auto craft this, and then it'll check if you can. So in this case, we can. Therefore, we can go ahead and it'll auto craft all the materials we need to grab the basic rod out. And because we are actually being charged by our Flux network, we actually are getting this thing charged up too. So anyway, let's go down here and let's demonstrate how this thing works. So to do this, we're going to need to put down some cabling, and we're going to put down one of these energy cables like so, or one of these energizing rods. Normally we do have to give this power too. So for now, I'm just going to make myself a quick point here, and I'm going to slap it down like that. It's not going to stay like this, but this is just for the demonstration. We have to make the energized steel. We can actually make energized steel using the energized steel essence. And I believe it's the same, probably going all the way up. Yeah, we can use that. Can we use it for this too? We can actually, in fact, use it for this as well. So this is technically a way we can do this that doesn't require using the... all you have to do is really make this stuff once in the pack, and then you can just use the essence from Mystical Agriculture to do it. But I think that's kind of boring. I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. I don't really want to do everything via Mystical Agriculture, but just so you guys know, you can, in fact, do it that way if you want to. And it might even be a little easier just to set up if you already have a system like I do. But I'm going to do it the more fun way. So to auto-craft some energized steel, we need 1 piece of iron, 1 piece of gold, and 10,000 FE in the energizing orb to create this stuff. We can put 1 piece of iron and 1 piece of gold, and this is going to start crafting it. And there we go, it's already done. So that was pretty quick. And you can see the percentage there and how fast. This one is a really quick one and easy to do, so it doesn't take long, but some of the later crafts and stuff, like this stuff, the nitro crystal, that'll take quite a bit of time because it requires 20 million FE. But sitting here like this and manually doing this over and over again isn't my idea of a good time. So we're going to definitely want to be automating this. We're basically just going to have the crafter face directly into the orb, and it'll basically work pretty much flawlessly. So I think what we're going to want though is we're probably going to want a higher tier crafter. Not only is that going to give us more space for more recipes, but it's going to craft things a little faster. Now, we're not going to be limited. We're basically going to be limited by the speed of the energizing orb, but it'll basically speed up the process of putting items into it as well. We're going to be using these enough that having these on autocraft is a pretty good idea, I think. However, there's a couple things we have to make sure we have autocrafted to make this work. For example, the machine casing. This isn't too bad because it just requires us to, have this like so. And also we need to have stone as an autocraft. Now that's pretty easy as well because I think we'll just throw in some coal and stone essence and we'll call that good there. And as you can see, we are already starting to run out of space on this gold crafter. So we're going to have to I'm going to actually take out the disk manipulator for now. And I think we're actually going to put another crafter in there as well. We are going to need to have auto-crafted the construction and the destruction cores. Those required the basic processors. Now, these are a little different because we actually have the raw ones already ready to go, but this is a smelting operation that we have to autocraft. We actually need to set up our emerald furnace system to accept autocrafts as well. And I think I'm going to do that just beside here for now. I'm going to end up making it bigger, but I don't want to do a whole lot more building right now, base building, and this is just going to be a really easy hookup, I think. Now, this furnace can be upgraded further, and I think that is something that I do want to do right now because I might as well do this before we start putting a bunch of crafts through it. So I have it up to the netherite furnace. I don't know how much aldermodium I have. I have 74, but this can also be given. There we go. We have a few more. So you know what? Let's just do that. Let's go to the aldermodium tier. It requires 4 of these blocks. And that should be able to be upgraded like that. And we got a little reward, which is nice. A stack upgrade, tier 2. Nice, okay. Can we go up to the vibranium level? That, I don't know. Let's see. See, we have much less vibranium than aldermodium, so that might be our limiting factor. Yeah, I think we're even just like 1 short, so we might actually have to stop there for now, but over time we'll probably be able to, and this is going to be plenty fast, I think. So we want to put in the factory upgrade like we had before. We want this to essentially take items in the top using the crafter and then pump them out the back using some sort of importing cable. Let's just get in here and get a little more space. Break that. This thing does need power, so we're going to have to plop down a point here, and that is going to be a lot of power. So it's a good thing we're working towards this power setup because this is going to be probably a little expensive power-wise. Maybe even diamond for this one because this is going to be a pretty important one, I think. Let me get a few more patterns there. Okay, so if we put the crafter here, we have to make sure that the crafter is facing into the thing you're wanting to craft in. The dot is what you want to be facing into the block you're wanting to craft with. And we want to hook this thing up as evenly as possible. So let's just hook it in like that. So now we're all set. This thing is hooked up, probably using quite a bit of power too, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. And we also need a way to get the items from there back into the system. So that's going to require a importer. Slap that on the bottom there. And we just need to hook this up like so. I think the good thing to do is get all the processors set up on auto crafting. We want to, for example, set the basic processor. But we know that one of these raw basic processors is going to be smelted and turned into one of the normal basic processors. And this is done using a processing craft. And it actually is smart enough to know that that's what this craft is going to be. So we're good to go ahead and say, okay, there we go. This is going to be what the craft is. Put this up here. And if we go in here and we ask for, you know, a stack of basic processors, it's going to do everything it needs to. And all the things are going to be pumping right through here. Now we can auto split, so it goes a little faster, but that was it. I think that is done. Yeah, we're basically done. So that's very, very fast. So I want to do that with all of these. I want to do that with this one and the top tier one, and then even this one as well. I make this, yeah, this should be fine. We might actually have to learn how to make a crafting table. The silliest thing to auto craft, I know, but so now we are all set to craft anything that revolves around using the processors. We're all fine for, and we are almost out of space in this gold crafter. So I think we're gonna have to make another crafter. We're gonna add that in there. So now we have a little more space, and our power situation, if we can check, is using 617 FE per tick. And that is gonna be pretty much our maximum. Our max production is 640, and we're using 617. So we're right on the edge of running out of power here. I wanted to run this off a different system at the beginning, but I think right now we're going to be upgrading very soon. I think it's not a bad idea to remove that, and then also then give this power that way, because that's going to be then taking power from our main system, and that's producing much more power than than that one dynamo was. Okay, so I set up a netherite crafter down here, which is going to put all the items we want to auto craft into this system. However, we also need to be able to take the items out, and crafters don't actually take items out of things, only put them into them. And if you don't take the items out and put them back into the system, then the craft operation won't actually know that it finished, and it's going to hang up on itself, and it's going to cause some problems. So we need to make sure that we can get all the items out of this thing back into the system. Thankfully, that's actually quite easy using the Entangled block. It's very expensive. We only need one of them though, so that's kind of the handy part. And it does require an ender chest, but if we make one Entangled block, you can bind this block to other blocks, which is really, really cool. And in order to do that, you need to get the Entangled binder, which is another bunch of unobtainium. So you best to have some unobtainium before you do this, I guess. But the nice thing that we can do is, let's just for an example put this down here. If we shift right click on the Energizing Orb and then right click on the Entangled block, this block is now acting as if it was that block there. So we can pump items into this, we can take items out of this, no problem. And I can do that just by going under here, and I have a little bit of a space dug out, and the nice thing is the cable's right here, so I can just grab it right off of here. And we're going to do the auto crafting all in this one block. So we're going to need a importer, and I think we're going to take the best quality importer if we can. Just like that. And we're going to have to hook it right onto this and cable it into the system like this. We only want to take the items out of here that have been energized. So we want to whitelist items, and we want to whitelist things like energized steel. We also might want the dry ice, sorry. Now all we have to do is, I think, create a pattern for energized steel. So if we come back down here into our little setup, we should be able to see in craftables that the energizing steel is in fact craftable. Now I want to come up here to see if we can watch it doing its thing. Oh, and also that's going to need some power again. Now let's say we want to make some energized steel. Make me, I don't know, a stack, sure. So as we can see here, this has put more into this than this can actually handle. So the recipe itself is 1 in 1, but it keeps trying to do multiple recipes at the same time. It doesn't actually know that it needs to wait for the recipe to be done. So that's going to be a bit of a challenge. We got to put our brainstorming caps on here. So I believe the crafter has a setting up here that says, that's it, redstone pulse inserts next set. So basically what we want to do is, I think we want to take a comparator signal out of this. Basically set a comparator signal when it has inserted something into this, it'll then give a signal out. So I don't know if this is actually going to work, but we're just going to do a little bit of testing here. I'll have to give this a think. I'll be back in a sec. Okay, so I think I got it. I did a little bit of playing around, and I think this works. It's been working with the energized steel at least. I'll keep trying it with other things, and if it breaks or something down the road, I'll find another solution and I'll update this. But how I have it now is I'm just reading the comparator output of this entangled block, which is going to be the energizing orb, which then will deactivate this redstone. Anytime this changes effectively, it'll give a pulse. So yeah, so this is working so far. And I'll keep going from here and seeing how this kind of plays out. But for now, looks good to me. And we're all set. So we have that. Oh, I also wanted to do the dry ice. Dry ice is what we're actually going to want to put into the reactor itself to cool it. It'll make things a little bit more efficient, but we're going to need some blue ice. So how much do we have in terms of blue ice? Not a lot. So if we come in here, let's add the auto craft for the hardened stuff. Everything else should be auto crafted fine. And that should be it. There we go. So we should be able to make some of these, and that's it. So we should have 36 hardened reactors. Now, we're also going to need a exporter. Just the base one I think is okay for now. And for some reason I hadn't made one before, we are going to need a water bucket. Just one, actually. So just one water bucket. We are going to set this reactor up right over here. And so basically how this works is if you have all the required blocks in your inventory, you just want to right click on the place that you want to set the reactor up, and it should start building it automatically, just like this. Really, really cool. I love the animation. I love how it does it for you. And the result, I think, is super clean looking. There we go. That is our reactor right now. So it is currently offline because we have nothing going into it. There are a bunch of little like ports along the sides that we can access. And I actually want to add a plug to the back of this thing. This is what we're going to be using to... We're adding power to the network from the reactor. That's what that's going to do. We also have to now add resources to this thing to be able to let it reproduce power. So we want to export in. I don't think it matters where you actually export into. Like, I think any block counts as a valid exporting block. But I'm just going to put it in the middle so I can hide it behind the wall here. And if we come in here, we want to export things that are going to make this thing run. Now, what you can do is this takes fluid along the side, and you can just put a bucket of water in here, and it actually never uses that bucket up. It will use the fuel and stuff up, and even the coolant, but the water itself is kind of more of just almost like a catalyst that doesn't actually get used up ever. So you can just put one bucket of water in there and call it good. And you can also put the auto mode on where this thing will turn off and stop using fuel when it's got a 70% buffer in its storage. Yeah, that's kind of cool. It helps then save some resources when you're not using it a lot. But anyway, just for now, I want to set up the export for, we want to export uraninite, which is the main fuel source. We want to export the, so now we can see it's fueling up. There we go. And it's actually already started, so that's kind of cool. It's only producing a little bit right now, but this temperature is going to climb and climb, so it's going to get to the point where it becomes less efficient. But we want to also be able to put in carbon and redstone. So this carbon will actually increase the efficiency for temperature, and this will decrease the fuel consumption. So we want to add redstone into this one, and carbon, so like coal, into this one. So all I have to do is come in here and say, well, export a redstone block and export a coal block. And that should start going automatically just like that. And just like that, we have a reactor that's producing power. So how I'm going to set this up is I'm going to have 3 of these energizing orbs on each side. So 12 total. And then I'm going to have a plug running in between like this, just powering each of them individually. I want to upgrade these cables, obviously, so maybe we'll go ahead and do some auto crafting setup with that, but I won't show that on camera because it's just the same stuff we've been doing this entire time. But I'm going to set up some of those crafts, get this stuff upgraded to what I can, and then I want to also figure out a way to get some ice. I need normal ice as well, so I'm hoping... Oh, here's some ice. Okay, so now we have ice seeds coming in. I want to be able to craft the blue ice from the ice seeds. So that's going to be pretty easy. All we have to do is make sure we have a recipe set for packed ice, and then also a recipe set for the blue ice, just like that. I don't necessarily want this or this. What I want is the dry ice. The dry ice is what's going to cause this to be the most efficient it could be. And the dry ice requires 2 blue ice. Now, there is an item called a requester, and this will basically let you keep whatever you want that you put inside this requester. It'll keep it at the certain stock level if it can. I think I'm going to put it over here. So that's online now. So if we come in here, we have 9 slots to work with. So I'm going to come in here and say, I want dry ice kept in stock at all times. And I only want maybe, I don't know, 32. Now that that's set up, this is going to try and craft dry ice for me. And as you can see, it's doing that right now. It's actually coming in here, and it's sending blue ice if it has enough, and crafting dry ice. Now, once I have this dry ice, I want this to actually come in here and be one of the things we're exporting into the reactor. And now that we have the dry ice coming in, it won't actually use it right now, but once it has to start pumping out power again to keep up with the demand, it'll actually use one of these dry ice, and then that's going to actually reduce this overall temperature. And that'll let it produce way more power out of this because of the cooling that we're adding into it right now. I'm going to upgrade the reactor at some point, but I'm more interested in upgrading our situation here, our cables and our energizing rod. Yeah, so we can see here now that it's actually used one of the solid coolants, it's brought the temperature from 500 down to 66 degrees. So it's a substantial increase in performance. I think what we're going to do is we're going to craft up more of these energizing orbs. We have 12 blazings right now. And we're going to, I think, make use of all of these. We want these on all sides. I'm hoping we're going to have enough power up front for this, because that's going to make things go much faster. And that's going to be ready to go. That's going to be a very fast energizing orb system. So let's just test that. So in order to make the reactor, we need 4 of the previous tier reactor, which we have, plus 1 piece of uraninite and 4 blazing capacitors. So we actually need 36 blazing capacitors, which means we need 36 times 2, because we get 2 per. Let's see if we can just make 80 blazing capacitors. Okay. That should be fine. That's going to start, hopefully, blazing. Oh, look at how fast that goes. Amazing. That is flying. I'm currently letting this thing run. I decided to try and see if I had enough materials to get up to a higher tier reactor right off the bat. And I added this tin to the last floor, which I think looks pretty cool. You can kind of watch it do its thing underground. Yeah, but it looks like it's running pretty smoothly. I haven't noticed any issues. The only thing that I've noticed is that we are completely out of power. So this is using all of the power we have to do this, and that makes sense because that's a ton of power, and we have no buffer. So I hope that we're not going to run out of any power. I'm going to make sure that this is set to have the highest priority here, just to make sure that this never runs out of power here. But yeah, so that's going to run as fast as it can, I guess. Looks like it's only got 3. It looks like it's running out of 3 of them, so we might just have to let it do its thing at its own speed. But yeah, it looks like it's running very well, though. I actually am going to upgrade this reactor to the next tier, I think. I have enough stuff to do it, I think, so I'm just going to dump all this stuff back in. Let's go here, put this back in our system, and if I type in blazing reactor, if I want 36, there should be plenty. Yeah, so we have everything we need here. Boom, immediately, which is great because that's going to hopefully keep up with the power a little bit better. That should hopefully speed up a little bit now, and it's generating a decent chunk more than it was before. Like, I think the best play is to upgrade these in parallel, like to upgrade a little bit of the energizing orb, then upgrading some of the cables, etc., etc. So, but yeah, I am very happy with this setup. I think this is going to do really well for us going forward, and I'll continue to upgrade this reactor a bit. I might do a little bit of just AFK watching this thing kind of energize stuff as it goes, and I might upgrade our reactor to a higher tier or so, and maybe some of the cabling. But I think this is going to be a great solution for like most of the pack, probably at least until the end game where we really need high amounts of power. Anyway, I think this is going to be a great spot to stop. We've done a lot of good work today setting this up, and I think this is going to be really good for us going forward. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave a like. Let me know that you loved it. And make sure you join the Discord if you haven't already. There I post updates on new content, some spoilers about sneak peeks on episodes and thumbnails, and chat with you guys about just Minecraft stuff, and it's a lot of fun. So if you guys are wanting to, feel free to hit that Discord link and come on over. Anyway, I'm going to call that there. Thanks for watching again. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.